Tom Morrow. Welcome to another edition of Living Legacies. We're here talking with Jack Thill, community leader in Oceanside. The other half of the Thill family. We've already talked with Bobby Thill, his beautiful wife, and now we're going to hear the other side of the story from Jack. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, you were born in Oceanside, just like your wife, Bobby.
Right.
Lifelong resident.
1927.
You're not ashamed to...
No.
You're going to tell me the year. Now, your grandfather and father were well-known businessmen here in Oceanside. Tell me about your granddad.
Well, my granddad came from Buffalo, Minnesota, out to Oceanside in 1906, and he was a barber.
This Granddad Thill?
Yeah, and Andrew Thill. He was a barber, had a barber shop, and...
Where was the barber shop?
You know, I don't know. It was before I was born, you know, 1906.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, my dad was born in 1998. And
1898?
1898. They came to Oceanside in 1906, and you have a picture there.
Yeah, I was going to say this first picture we have here is of your dad and your uncle.
Right.
That's your dad Al and your uncle Francis Thill.
Let's see.
And they're
yeah.
And they're holding their noses because of
boys will be boys.
This is in front of what church here in
The
Oceanside?
Catholic Church.
Whereabouts was that church? You remember?
It must have been right where the church is today on
St.
Fairview
Mary's?
Way.
St. Mary's. So, what did your dad do when he went to school here too?
He went to school. His sophomore year, at the end of his sophomore year, he enlisted in the Navy. Was on the USS Yale, a troop transport that went from England to France carrying troops.
This had been during World War I.
During World War I. He came home and after the war and opened a barber shop. Went to work with my grandfather, one of the two. And then he had an opportunity to open up a cafe and a billiard parlor at around the 215 North Hill Street, 101 at that time. And underneath in the basement, he had a boxing ring there where the amateur boxers used to train. And then he had a barbershop chair that he could cut hair. So he had a multiple...
He was multifaceted.
That's right. He could go in all different directions.
Oh, now you had mentioned that he also had a few professional fights?
Yeah, he fought 22 professional fights and never was defeated, but he could never knock anybody out. And so he just gave it up after a while.
Went on decisions then, right?
Yeah.
What weight division?
He must have been a lightweight. About 135 pounds, maybe 140.
And you were born in 27 and went to school all...
I went through Oceanside Elementary School, and it's a funny thing, you know, my wife is, as you know, was a teacher, and you look back on people who got you jump-started, we'll say, and you'll find that most of the times it was a teacher that gave you a little boost and got you on your way. But I had two of them that really helped me out. One was Dorothy Chambers, who later became Leo Meese's wife. Then she became naturally Mrs. Meese. And the other was Ruth Steele, who became Ruth Wackerman. Mrs. Chambers taught the third grade, and Ruth Wackerman taught the fifth grade.
What did they do that was special for you?
Well, God, Mrs. Chambers was just a loving teacher. Not only was she a good teacher, but she really took an interest in you. And Ruth Wackerman chose me to become a member of the safety patrol that we had in Oceanside. We used to be at the street crossings and had little signs, stop, go, to let the kids go across the street. My post was down at Topeka and 101.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, I think you have a picture of it there, Tom. Yeah, that's it here.
This is a picture.
This picture was taken when I was in the 5th grade. There's a lot of kids that are still there, but it gave each one of us, we're proud to be a member of this patrol. We were on it, this particular group, we're on it for a year. And this was a postcard. They made it into a postcard, and they sent it out advertising Oceanside. So we got a lot of publicity, and it jump-started me in school.
Well, now this was a little bit earlier than when Bobby was ringing the bell to get kids into the school.
I don't know what year she was
Well,
ringing
she said
the bell.
she
She
was in
rang my bell a couple of times. I know that.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Well, I was going to say now, when did you first meet Bobby?
Well, when she was just a little girl, she used to come down to our house. They lived on Horn Street. We lived on Alberta Street, which are about 3 blocks apart. She was a good friend of my sister's, and she used to work her way down the street to see my sister.
Yeah, she tells it a little differently. But
Does
that's,
she?
yeah.
Well, when did I start noticing her?
Yeah.
I started noticing her when the skirt started going up.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And she wasn't a bad looker either, as you know, and still
still
is,
isn't,
as
yeah.
a matter of fact.
Well, now you did something that was a little different, and I'd like for you to tell why. After going all through school with all your friends in Oceanside, and then when it come time for high school, you went over to the Army Navy Academy. How did that happen?
Well, my dad sent me over there. They had an excellent music teacher over there, and Major Atkinson at that time. He later became Colonel Atkinson and president of the school. But a group of us from Oceanside went down there to take music lessons in the summer from this man. And my dad became so entranced with this fella that he talked me into going to school down there. And I was the only one out of the group that went. And he got a little scholarship for me because I played sax and clarinet and did a pretty good job of it. And he welcomed me down there. But it was tough, I'll tell you, leaving your friends and going to school down there, because when I first started there were only 48 students in the entire school. And we played football against Oceanside, Escondido, Vista, San Diego, and we just didn't have the class.
Well, we've got some pictures of you with. Here's a picture of you in uniform.
Yeah.
And
that's my original hair.
That's the original. Now this is a picture of you in your track uniform.
Yeah.
And this is your football uniform.
Right.
Did you play in any sports against Oceanside?
Every year.
And did you?
We got
take
beat
a lot of
every year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we gave them a good, we used to talk about how close the game was. We never won many, but how close it was.
I've got several of those in my background too.
Well,
we almost had them.
Yeah, my senior year, Vista beat us 6-7, 7-6. Oceanside beat us 6-0. We finally beat Ramona, but that was the only team that we beat that year. But we did a little better at track because that was an individual sport. And
so now when you got out of high school in 1945,
right.
Did you immediately go to college?
I went to Loyola University for a year. And then Bill Helfrich and about 6 other fellows, John Oakley, there was a short enlistment that the U.S. Army had, an 18-month enlistment, and you could get the GI Bill of Rights, and they said that if you enlisted for that term, they would not call you in if a war came about. Well,
haven't you heard that story before?
I've heard that story before. The only thing that was good about it was that the Korean War, they called it a police action.
Yeah,
but the guys
I remember that.
The guys in the trenches didn't call it a police action, you know. But we all went in different directions. I went to Korea.
And here's a picture of you in front of one of those famous Quonset huts.
That's right.
And is that in Korea?
That's in Gwangju, Korea.
Uh-huh. What year was that?
That was I landed in Korea at Incheon Harbor the 31st of December, 46. And I was immediately put in a riot squad at the Camp Sykes.
Now, what is a riot squad?
Well, at that time...
combat zone.
Well, the war was over, but the communists had come down, and they were starting to have riots in the villages like Gwangju, which was about 20 miles from our camp. So they trained us in riot control, and thank goodness I never had to go out on one, but I was transferred. The hospital in Gwangju held a dance for all the officers and nurses at the hospital, and a dance band came in from Busan, Korea to play. Well, some of the guys in the SAC section had gotten some bad food and became ill, so they set out a alarm for people to come in who had played sax and clarinet and to audition. So I went in and auditioned, and that night I was playing lead clarinet and sax in a dance band.
So those days at Army-Navy Academy paid off.
They certainly did. I thank my dad for that. But anyway, they transferred me into the band then, and I was in a traveling dance band.
And here's a picture of that. Where's that picture taken?
You know, it's probably Taegu or Taejon, and that was our regular marching band and concert band. We had another band that played in Busan, and we had a military band. When it was fully employed, it had something like 65 musicians in it, so we had a pretty nice band.
Now, we've kind of skipped over an important part of your life. You went to Korea after you were married?
No, before.
So you were married what year? 1950,
September 3rd.
So you were in Korea. You were in Korea before the outbreak of the war, then.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
I went to Korea in 46.
Okay. Now explain. I mean, this is an important aspect that a lot of people are not going to understand. The hostilities broke out in June 25th of 1950.
Right.
Is where the so-called police action.
Right.
But Korea had been occupied by Japan since the 30s, and so we went in and took over South Korea.
South Korea.
The Russians had the north part.
Right. Well, the communists, the Russians, they were a presence there. I don't know how big a presence.
Well, they wanted to take the northern island of Japan. I know.
Well, they not only wanted to take North Korea, they wanted to take South Korea.
And hence the occupation of the United States.
Right.
So you were there during the late 40s then.
I was there from December 31st of 1946 to March of 48.
And came home and went back to college?
Went back to college.
Did Uncle Sam keep his word about not calling you back? No.
I got to tell you, Uncle Sam kept their word.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd be back in there playing sax and clarinet, hopefully.
So it sounded like you had a pretty good tour over there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was an education. Going to Korea in 1946 was like going to a country that was 50 years behind our country. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They didn't have, they had very little electricity, very little running water. I used to work for the ice company in Oceanside, and one of the first things I saw when I got over there was a cart pulling ice, and if people wanted the ice, they'd saw it off and give it to them. Actually, when I got there, it was in December, and it was so darn cold But I should have said that one of the first times I saw an ice cart was during the summertime there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got married in 1950,
Right.
and you were both in college then, or had Bobby graduated from college?
She had graduated.
She was going to keep you in a style that you'd like to become accustomed to.
Right.
I remember her saying that first teaching contract paid her $2,000 a year.
It paid her $200 a month for 12 months, so it was $2,400.
You had that one down.
Well, yeah, I could.
you knew exactly.
I kept the books
Where
because I didn't have any income except during the summertime.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Pomona and then transferred over to Redlands, and we were married my senior year at Redlands.
Okay, now you come back to Oceanside, and what kind of work did you get into?
Went into I was going to become a manager with Sears and Roebuck. They had hired me to go on their managerial training program. But Ted Holden, who was a former mayor of Oceanside, passed away, and he had an insurance business. Mm-hmm. And they put it up for sale, and Bobby's dad and Amby Vitito wanted to buy that agency. Ray had
Ray Wilcox,
who
was a former mayor himself.
Right. Mm-hmm. He had an insurance agency that Amby Vitito ran. And they saw a chance to buy Holden's agency, Ted Holden's agency, and so Amby came down to San Diego. I was supposed to go to work for Sears and Roebuck on a Wednesday. Bobby had signed a contract to go to work as a teacher with the La Mesa Spring Valley School District. We had rented a place down there. I think it was a Tuesday. He came down and said, "Say, Jack, if you can borrow enough money from your dad to help us buy this insurance agency, we'll bring you in as a partner." Well, Oceanside, as you know, is one of the best places in the world to live, and the opportunity was there, so I went to my dad, and he loaned me the money, and I put it in the pot, and we bought the agency. So then, later on, I bought Mr. Wilcox out of the business, and then in '82 I bought Mr. Vitito out, Amby Vitito's interest out, so I became the sole owner of it. And then I sold it later on to Barney and Barney of San Diego and managed their Oceanside office for 3 years and then retired.
Mm-hmm. Insurance was your lifelong pursuit then?
I didn't even know what an insurance policy was, and they jerked me out of the Sears and Roebuck job. And
just to give people an idea of comparison in money, approximately how much did you have to borrow from your dad to get into that business?
Well, that's between my dad and me.
Okay,
but I'll tell you
fair
this.
Enough.
He charged me 6% interest, and I paid it. I paid all the money back, and then he forgave what interest I had paid him.
But it would have been a pittance compared to what it would have cost today to buy a business of that type.
Oh yeah, well, and it was complicated too because I didn't have a full interest in the insurance agency, so I just had a junior partner's interest, we'll call it. That's what Vitito used to call it. I was the junior partner until I bought him out.
Yeah. Well, but it shows what a lot of hard work can do. You can build a business, and of course Oceanside was growing all that time. And,
yeah, we not only purchased Ted Holden's business, but when Laurie Porteous, who's many old timers will remember, he had the Hartford agency in Oceanside. We bought his agency, and then later on we bought Elgin Lackey's agency.
Of course, the Marine Corps always played a big part of that because they were the reason why Oceanside kept growing all those years.
Yeah.
Now I know you're a past president of the Rotary Club. Any other posts that you've had over the years in civic or community affairs?
Well, I was elected. I was elected to the school board in 1973.
Oh, Oceanside Unified?
Oceanside Unified School District. And
How many years did you serve there?
I served 2 years. 73 to 75. We had a student body. The Oceanside Unified School District at that time was about 10,000 students involved. Today, it's probably around 22,000. So it's growing also. And I think this fellow, Ken Noonan, and the board of directors up there are doing a terrific job. You know, I don't think Oceanside has ever gotten credit for the number of kids that came out of school and had really fine jobs given to them and offered, and they deserved them. You know, one thing that Oceanside lacked for a number of years were jobs for qualified people graduating from high school. And you had these kids, students, leaving Oceanside to go to the city to get jobs, like Kirk McDonald back in Denver and his brother Mike up in L.A. So with IDEC coming in and companies like Federal Signs are
We're going to be able to keep a lot more of our young people.
We're going to keep some of those students here, and maybe we'll get a little credit in the school district for putting out some pretty high-class kids.
Well, I know that athletic-wise, going into the pro ranks, it's Oceanside. I don't think there's a city in America that can hold a candle to Oceanside as far as the number of athletes that have gone on to big and wonderful things.
Well, if you go out to Laurel Street School, Bill Wagner started a Hall of Fame there, and you're probably aware of it.
Yeah, Bill and I talked about it on this very show.
Well, it's not just the athletes that little Laurel Street School put out. They also put out some great musicians and great professional people.
A few politicians, too.
Yeah.
Terry Johnson, for one, right?
Yeah, Terry Johnson.
Terry went to that school.
Yeah, Pete Magana and his wife and Ethel Buchanan have done a wonderful job of supporting that school out there. I'm sure there's many others, but they come to mind.
Yeah. Well, all in all, you've had a wonderful life in this town.
I'm going to tell you something, Tom. There's no greater place in the world than Oceanside.
I agree. And on that note, we will say good night. We thank you for your time here on Living Legacies. We thank you, Jack, for coming in. Till next time, I'm Tom Morrow, your host. Good evening. This program is made possible through the generous underwriting grants of Hatter Williams and Purdy Insurance Services of Oceanside, providing North County with complete insurance needs for more than half a century. The TriQuest Corporation, providing quality office and manufacturing space in Oceanside, and the North County Times, serving all of North County with complete local daily news coverage and internet services.